Hi Nidhi, thank you so much for joining us on Blitz Business. It's a pleasure to have you.
Thanks, Ashish. It's nice to have to have this conversation with you and everyone.
Awesome. Let's get started. So Nidhi, before we dive into business and all that serious stuff, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay, so I live in Bangalore. I have been in Bangalore for about 21 years, so it's my home now. But I moved from Bombay 20 years ago and moved in Bangalore and in TeamLease that long. And TeamLease was just about starting. We started, setting up various functions. So I have been associated with the company for more than 2 decades now, wearing various hats, right from customer support, operations, business, and now obviously managing the TeamLease Digital business overall, which is primarily a technology and a specialized staffing firm. But prior to TeamLease, I have worked in the employability and the education space for about a decade across organizations. Had a good chance to travel about 18 20 countries with my previous role, setting up international operations, gave a lot of learnings, experiences, and by education, I am a statistics and an economics, graduate. Obviously, postgraduated with MBA, and yeah, so that's about me.
So you said you are now in Bangalore. So Bombay or Bangalore? A tricky question.
Both. I don't think I have anything because Bombay is still home. I have family there,
Yeah.
but now Bangalore's my home. So I mean, obviously, both cities have pros and cons, ups and downs, but I don't think I can ever make a choice between the two.
Any change you have seen in Bangalore for last 20 years since you?
Huge, huge. Not just to mention the traffic which everyone talks about,
Yeah.
but I think the demographics of Bangalore has changed. It's become a lot more welcoming and open to other people. In the tech space, 70% of the employees are coming from outside of Karnataka, which is, I think, it just talks about how flexible the city has been even earlier, but now even more. Obviously, it's expanded. It's become the startup capital of the country. So the kind of innovation and technology that we see in Bangalore on a day-to-day basis, even as users, even if we are not doing the whole R&D and D and innovation, I think it's amazing, and we are really ahead of all other cities in the country, even in terms of adoption. Of course, the traffic is a downside at the moment, but I would probably put it on growth. That it's also because it's a massively growing city, which probably other smaller cities are yet to see. So yeah, so huge change. Not to even mention the weather, because when I came in about May or June, it would start raining, and you still need sweaters and jackets. Now you need ACs in the summers.
And pollution also. That has also been a hot topic.
Yes, but it is still far better than many other cities. It's comparative. Which city are you from?
Originally, well, the most polluted city or Delhi.
Delhi. Yeah.
So that's awesome. So Nidhi, if you can tell us a little bit about Team Lease for people, for listeners who are not aware what Team Lease does.
Sure. So Team Lease Services Limited, has been around for about 22 years now. We started as a staffing company, a formal staffing organization, way back in 2002, 2003. And the objective was to provide the right kind of talent to employers who are not able to get the demand supply ratio, right. Some manner of speaking, we have been the first formal staffing player in the country. But prior to us, there were some global players, but in India, we were the first ones to set up shop and ensure that we formalize it. Obviously, through our journey, we have worked very closely with policymakers, with industries, with academia, to ensure that people recognize apprentices or temp employment as a job, because we know about till about 2.5, 3 decades ago, everyone would only want a permanent employment,
Yeah.
and more so a government employment, because private employment was slightly lesser than what it is right now. Yes, so formalizing staffing, formalizing temporary employment, ensuring that they have the rights, or the labor policies getting created, or rather tweaked for employees and employers both across sectors, was also very critical. So through our journey of about 22, 23 years, we've ensured that this becomes a formal industry. Obviously, we were the ones who initiated the Staffing Federation, and thereon it became a huge institution now, which has hundreds of staffing, formal staffing players under the umbrella, which in a way becomes a representation for the staffing industry. So while we started doing staffing in small shapes and forms, hiring for temporary requirement, doing the entire HR administration, we also realized through our journey that we were hiring only 5% of the kids who were coming to us for jobs. 95% of people were actually sent back home purely because they were either not job ready or not employable for the jobs that were available in the industry. So, a decade into our journey, we started connecting the dots and saying, hey, why don't we assess the candidates, tell them where they're lacking in skills, help them upgrade their skills, and then put them into employment. So, probably early 2013, 14, forayed into short-term skill development, and in 2014 we set up India's first skills university, which is called TeamLease Skills University, based out of Gujarat, where the objective was that we what do I call signal vocational skills along with the right degrees. Otherwise, prior to that, again, vocational skills in even today, a lot of people's mind, skills or vocational skills meant ITI plus plus.
Yeah.
You
So
know, yeah.
in like today's time, Niti, so what are those skills typically which are in demand, let's say, or because the market has also changed a lot. I also come from software background, like the market has changed significantly a lot. So if someone is entering the market right now, from your experience, since you are in the market and hiring and staffing, what are the trends?
So it varies from sector to sector. Obviously, it varies from industry where you're coming from. But since you mentioned software, and I deal with a lot of tech jobs, the basics of skills are not changing. I'm sure even when you learned, what was told to you was about not just coding, but how do you actually use your logic? How do you use modularity? How do you decide what tech stack you use, but the development has to happen in a certain fashion manner. So project management is not changing. Of course, what's changing is today, given that we are all talking about AI and Gen AI, it's all over the place. We may probably not need software developers to do end-to-end coding, but we need software developers who understand software development. You
That's
can't have people who don't understand the basics of development, who don't understand analytics, who don't understand logic, right? And saying, hey, I'm going to copy paste and put the code. That's not going to work.
But doesn't that mean less staffing for you guys?
Or not really, because the kind of jobs that have increased in cloud, data analytics, security over the last 1 year, purely given that people have started incorporating AI into the day-to-day jobs. I think, and this is not new, Ashish. We've seen this over the last many years that every time a new tech stack gets announced, there's this fear that the jobs will go, but we've only seen the absolute number of jobs increase. Of course, what happens is that the job role and the skill set gets redefined. So today, yes, people still need Python, Java, full stack developers in plenty, but we also need obviously database, what we call specialists, and we need a lot more security, data, and cloud specialists. So there are newer jobs getting created clearly, and this is happening continuously. So I wouldn't fear. I mean, I remember about what less than a decade ago, IoT was the buzzword, right? And we got IoT, and now things will change. Jobs will go. We don't know what's going to happen. Today, IoT is a consumer technology. It's in our homes, right? So even a FMCD or an FMCG company is using IoT.
So so I one personal challenge I face in this space. We run a software company. We have to hire. Whenever you put out a job post, and since you guys are in hiring space, the quality is a big issue. You may get 500 application for a job post within no time, like no time, 2 3 days max to max, right? Or maybe more if it's a hot topic job, sort of AI and all, right? But the biggest thing I personally faced, or the previous guests across our podcast line in different segments, not just IT space, like in hospitality, in any space, like all of them, at least all the founders which have come, they have said one of the biggest challenge for them has been hiring, across all, right? We are close to 200 episode, and across all the theme is hiring, and I personally correlate with this. So what is this challenge, and how does someone overcome it, and why is it such a big issue?
Yeah. So I don't think it's new. As CEOs, I think everyone has been grappling with this challenge forever, because we never are able to bring in the demand supply match to exactly what the employers are looking for. Okay. But the bigger challenge in India, Ashish, clearly has been that we've got graduates, right? Every year we've got 15 lakh graduates passing out. About 3.5, 4 lakh are STEM graduates. The problem is their employability. The problem is how job ready are they. So that's problem one. I'm not saying that what the education institutes are teaching is less important, but we need to orient our students to a lot more application driven learning rather than just knowledge and theory. So it starts from there. But having said that, I think what all organizations are doing right now is that they have a line of recruiters. We've all got now technology tools to filter, assess, talk to the candidates, and it is a time consuming process. And honestly, probably because of this challenge as well, the companies like us survive, because we do a lot of intervention before we send the candidate or the screened candidates to the employers. So instead of doing a 1 is to 10 or 1 is to 20, clients are doing 1 is to 3 selection.
But I'm not too sure if, Niti, if you have seen those on Instagram memes where now candidate also has technology.
Yeah, of course.
So when they
And
are giving
right.
an interview, you have a bot running
Correct.
behind you, and they can answer is getting generated, be it text or through voice. So the the ground is equally well equipped both sides.
It is so. And I think, especially given, there is this whole thing about AI generated job descriptions, and then there are AI generated profiles or biodatas, resumes to match the AI generated
Yeah.
JD. Okay. But then it is the human intelligence that has to figure out the right versus wrong. So when we, as recruiters, when we talk to the candidates, the questions that are coming in, we may not do only video calls. We may do call. We will do case studies. We do a lot of things to ensure that the candidates, and obviously it's not like we are 100%. But we try and eliminate a lot of those confusions before the candidate reaches the end customer. But yes, it is a challenge, and it's purely because employability has been a bigger challenge in our country than employment.
So hiring tips for the candidate, if someone is looking or applying for a job from your perspective, what should they prepare for people who are looking for jobs and applying for jobs?
I think before preparation, Ashish, what I would call out is that, and I say this as an advice to everybody who's looking for employment, is please put your resume to as true as you can make it. Don't talk about things that you haven't done, or don't talk too big, because when you sit in front of an interviewer, you're going to get caught. You will fall short of what you've actually promised on the paper. So that's one, right? Two is apply for jobs which you think are up to your strengths. Don't apply for jobs saying, oh, you know what, I'll probably learn this on the job. Don't expect the employer to train you on the job. That happens because employers do make a lot of investments on upskilling and deploying people to the right projects and roles. But then at least try and do this at your end. So you know your strengths, you know your weaknesses. Try and get jobs which are up to your strengths, and then work over your weaknesses over a period of time. That's two. Okay, third, I would say keep learning all the time. We can't be complacent saying, hey, I've got a job. And this happens a lot of lateral resources saying, I've got an employed job, I don't probably need to upskill. In the tech area, probably it's still lesser, because the technology is shifting and they have no choice but to upgrade themselves. But in other areas, actually, people probably don't even bother upgrading or upskilling themselves. If I've got a job, and it's where we come from as a country, right? I've got employment, I've settled down now, I don't need to do anything beyond that. And anything that needs to be upgraded, my employer will pay for, which is also a big challenge. Since you mentioned, all the leaders telling you hiring is a problem, let me tell you, nobody, industry or the candidate wants to pay for learning. People are willing to pay us a higher price for a skilled resource. The student is willing to pay us if they've got a job. So barring Government of India, which has the highest skilling budgets, and of course corporate India has those budgets, but it's not enough to ensure that we create a ecosystem where even if there are people who don't have the right skills, they learn on the job, and they get the right skill sets, they get credits, there's a continuous academic path for everyone.
So any funny hiring story, Neeti, you guys have? I'm sure you will be having ton of them.
Oh, lots actually. One is quite funny, and I think it's quite true. It happens even today. And this was a couple of years ago. We were hiring a candidate in Pune. I mean, he had agreed to come in for an in-person interview. Obviously, this was before the pandemic and before a lot of technology came in into recruitment. And and typically as a process, once an interview is scheduled, and this was for lateral hiring, this was not a junior level hiring. Our recruiters keep following up saying, hey, there are nudges today which are automated. Earlier there were manual nudges, which is what our recruiters would do. Tomorrow is your interview, I hope you're prepared, this is a job role, blah blah blah. An hour, maybe even 30 minutes before the interview, this candidate said, yes, I'm coming in, I'm coming in. Eventually, he didn't turn up for the interview. And when we kept calling, he didn't pick up a call for a fairly long time. And when we called him finally and he picked up, he said, no, my wife said the Mahurat was not right, so I'm not coming in for the interview.
God.
So, you should have known this. You can still see the charts before you agree to the timing. And this is somebody who didn't have a job. It's not like he had another job and he was waiting to just try out something else. So there are lots of these stories that I can tell you. And another thing that we did, a couple of years ago, which actually worked very well for us, is we had put in a board outside all TeamLease offices saying trespassers will be hired, because the employment requirement was so high, we could have actually hired anyone who worked in our doors.
It's like need people just come.
Yeah, just because I think at some point also a lot of employers were willing, saying, "Give me, what do I call it? Give me a pair of hands and legs. If the brain comes attached, great. If no, fine, I'll manage. I need the brute force. I need people." And one thing one of our recruiters did very smartly, this was in Bangalore, if I'm not mistaken. He was getting married and he had actually put in a job requirement saying, reach us if you need jobs, on his wedding invitation. I thought it was quite
Wow.
enterprising
Wow.
at that time. So, like employers say that they don't get the right candidates. Candidates are also struggling to get the right jobs.
But this astrology thing is quite funny. So we had an astrology company just before you guys, and so do you guys? How did you solve that particular thing? You like now this offer is like according to all the stars aligned. So for all the candidates who are
Yeah, I've heard that happens. That actually happens, and I know there's one company based out of Bangalore that does this for all their leadership. But if the candidate is okay to go through the process, fine. Otherwise, too bad.
crazy
So they drop
stories.
the candidate.
Yeah, yeah.
I
So
mean, I think each one to their own. Everyone's struggling. Everyone's trying to find unique solutions to ensure that they kind of solve this for themselves. But yes, there is a problem purely because of employability of our freshers. Over a period of time with laterals, it just becomes about how are you upskilling, upgrading yourself, or are you going to stay redundant with your skills? Even especially today, agility and relevance is very high on anyone's priority.
that's true. So Niti, let's talk about a little bit about the business. For example, what I understand about this business, it's a thin margin business, right?
Yes.
And very operation intensive, as from the stories also in terms of very heavy hands-on business. Plus, I mean, in terms of back in the day, since 2000 when TeamLease started on that time, there was a big boom in terms of hiring, back offices, everything. Compared to now, like how do you compare and contrast? I mean, because if someone wants to, so I am now putting up a question from the perspective of entrepreneurs. Many people listen in terms of they want to start something.
Yeah.
Staffing is a very quick and easy business to set up quite easily, right? In terms of very less capital intensive, you connect the dots, you get talent out. But how easy or difficult it is for someone to start today?
I don't think it's very difficult to start. What is difficult is sustainability. Yeah. I mean, like you rightly said, staffing, I mean, I could set up my own company independent of everything else. Fixed assets are minimal. I need maybe set of people who can get this rolling. We may have some connects. I'll start hiring. I'll get some employment opportunities. But then sustainability and compliance are two things which are very, very critical. In most cases, especially, when we started out, we realized compliance was not a given for many of these organizations that were doing temp staffing. So authorities would keep questioning. I mean, today we payroll about 400,000 people on a monthly basis,
Oh,
which
wow.
means I do PF, for those many people. I do ESIC for the people who are below the salary, the 15,000 salary mark. The PTs have to be paid, GSTs have to be paid. Compliance is a huge part of what we work on, and this is state wise, right? This is state wise, city wise. So our laws keep changing every state. Our compliances keep changing. So we have to ensure that we adhere to all of that and above. I can't shortchange my employees whom I'm payrolling by saying, hey, your CTC is 15,000, but I'm going to pay you 10,000. I mean, those are very critical and important aspects of any staffing business, of any industry, actually. And to your point, yes, it is a low margin business, but it's a very high volume business. So sustainability will only kick in with very high volumes. And for high volumes, you need cash flows. So you need to survive,
Yeah.
to sustain and grow. So it's a cycle. I don't think there are many other players who have grown over the last few years in the staffing industry. I don't think anyone's had it easy. But yes, starting absolutely. And if I'm starting with just myself, where my fixed cost is low, I may be able to scale it to a certain point. I don't think they'll be able to scale it to, where we are. Let's say it's a 10,000 crore turnover company listed. And there's a lot that needs to be taken. And of course, while the demand is on one side, the supply side has to also be worked upon, right? Because we don't have people who are just waiting to get jobs with the right skills. So something that we initiated almost about 10 years ago, 10, 11 years ago, was an apprenticeship program, which is now the PMIS, the Pradhan Mantri Internship Scheme in that avatar. There was NAPS, there's NAT, there was NEEM earlier. So we've worked very closely with policymakers, because while every academician and every education institute says industry doesn't cooperate and doesn't partner with us, industry says academia is not doing enough. And this whole industry academia partnership, you will hear in every forum you would have attended. And it's a challenge. The only way to resolve is to bring them together onto the table. And we did that to ensure that the industry takes the apprentices, pays a certain stipend, which is actually very close to minimum wages of the state, and the academia or the education institutes giving credits and programs and knowledge to the student, and we as a third party brings all of them together and the students together, so the four stakeholders work hand in hand. And today we have about 55,000 such apprentice trainees that are deployed across industry. So we don't have to just, what do I call, take what we get from the market. There's a lot that has to be done through the process to ensure that our clients get the right resources, the candidates get the right jobs, and obviously, like I said, compliance and sustainability is very, very key for any company.
As a business, Neeti, 10,000 crores, 400,000 per month payroll on employees listed. What else is left to achieve then?
So there's a lot to do. I mean, I think we are just scratching the surface in India,
Yeah.
because yeah, I mean, the problem in India is so large, right? Of education, employability, and employment, right? If we are able to, you know and I don't think we'll ever be able to resolve all the problems, but wherever we can,
For
as we
example,
say, so let's say, for example, this new technology, how is it shifting for employers, how is it shifting for candidates, right? Our own efficiency and productivity using technology and tech stacks is something that we would like to do. But clearly, if we talk about now tier 2 cities coming up, Earlier, it's only the tier one cities where employment was happening, and we had that problem because the southern and the western belts of our country have more jobs and more employment opportunities compared to the northern and the eastern belt. So we were migrating people from one part of the country to the other part, and which is why the large cities have got cluttered the way they have been. But now with the focus, even the government putting a lot of impetus on developing many more tier two cities, employment opportunities have to start growing there. They need to start getting the right people. Policies have to actually have to become a lot more easy. So we also work, like I said, with policymakers to ensure that the whole ease of doing business, and that's something that again you would have heard a lot in this budget, in the previous budget, saying EODB is a focus. But then, as a country, we have thousands and tens of thousands of acts and laws that each employer has to fulfill or adhere to. So there's a lot to happen, and the fact that we decided to do all of this only in one country, which is our country, is that the problem is so big. Even if we die trying, I don't think we'll resolve it completely.
So you mentioned budget. There was this discussion happening in terms of people. Corporations will be like companies will start hiring people. Will be they'll saying like 12 lakh salary because it's tax free. So it will be like, is this something you guys are seeing somewhere or you plan to do also in terms of offering 12 lakh salary? It will be tax free as an incentive or something
Look,
of those.
for us, really, that is an outcome of what our employers want, because they dictate the salary ranges. But the fact is that yes, if somebody is at a 12 lakh salary, I don't think he or she will want a 1 lakh or a 2 lakh increment in the next performance appraisal, because they will end up paying taxes and earn lesser than what they would earn if they were not in the non-taxable bracket. That math is very clear, I think.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think now, and unfortunately, or fortunately, I think for people who are below the 12 lakh bracket, great. Anyone above, they get to the slab, they will end up paying more than, if somebody's at 13 lakh, they'll actually pay about, what I think it was 45, 50,000. So they will earn a lot lesser than the 12 lakh.
So we will be seeing less increments coming for people in this slab.
Between the 12 and maybe the 13, 14, 15, yes, where people may opt out. Yeah, but I don't think there's any other way to go. I mean, if you're growing up the ladder, you will obviously look for appraisals and you will look for increment in salary. So it's not like you're going to jump from 12 to 20 to save your net take home, it's going to be a gradual increase. And, our industry, today is doing a, 8 to 10%, max 12% increment across board, nothing more than that.
Increment has sort of scaled back compared to 2020.
Yeah, obviously, it is. Just give me 1 second. This background. Sorry, I stay next to the HL airport, and right now the Aero India aircrafts fly off from here. So yes, the increments have tapered down in most cases, especially over the last 2 years and the tech sector, given the way the markets were going. But there are industries they're paying more. Obviously, at the entry level, the lower levels increments are a lot higher because the absolute number is low. But as you go up, it will stay at 8, 10, 12%, not more than that. Don't see that changing, at least even in this appraisal cycle for most industries.
So, and then there is this big topic of discussion in terms of how many hours you're supposed to work from L&T chairman to the great people like
Make
Infosys.
that statement.
Yeah. So, how much should someone really work at the end of the day? And I think I have the right person to ask since you have so many people on your payroll and it can impact a lot.
Yeah.
So,
So, I think we know that there are industries where people are already putting in the 14, 15, 16 hours a day. Okay, that's typically the retail industry, the hospitality industry, the e-commerce industry, supply chain. All the delivery executives end up putting 15, 16, 18 hours a day, because they know that the input that they put in terms of hours is directly proportionate to the outcome of the income that they make. But when I come to knowledge workers, when I come to blue collar workers, which are factory staff or people who are working in offices or in the tech industry, I don't think there is a right answer to the cap that you can put in. Of course, our labor laws talk about 48 hours a week. Anything outside of 48 hours, clearly the employees have to get paid overtime. So that's what law says. Now, because these are labor laws and we say, oh, it's not applicable to white collar people like us, we end up making employees work for 10 hours a day, 12 hours a day. But all of us are aware that this is not sustainable, this is not long term. If there is a need for me to be in office or continue working for 20 hours a day, it may happen for one day, it may happen for 2 days. Physically, mentally, it is not possible for anyone to be productive, if they work for the 70 or the 90 hours that were on the table for discussion in the last month. It's not practical. But if you look at larger cities, the travel time itself is 1.5 hours each way. So if you add all of that, are you expecting employees to be up for 24 hours and then come back again next morning? That's not going to work. It's not productive. It's not practical. I mean, what he said, I'm sure there was some other what do I call situation why that statement came in. So not that I'm defending him, but 90 hours or 70 hours is not tenable. It's not sustainable. It's not practical. Some cases, yes, even we work for 14, 15 hours a day. Maybe I'll do it for 2 days a week, 2 days at a stretch, 3 days at a stretch. Then my body will give up. My mind will give up before my body. And we're talking of productivity. So in the IT industry, people do work overnight. They work multiple shifts. They work multiple hours because their connect is with global geography. Someone's working US timing, someone's working UK timing, someone's starting early working Asia time or Australia time. So people start as early as 4 in the morning and maybe finish as late as 10 or 11 in the night, right? But then they get breaks in between, there are time slots. So there's a balance. You can't do either ways. Yes, we need to put in the hard work, but we also need to put in intelligent work to ensure efficiency and productivity in everything that we do. By just clocking in manners, productivity is not going to kick in clearly.
Plus, I have also seen there is a very large, how to put it, in terms of discontentment within corporates as an employee. Yeah, right. In terms of maybe work culture or some other reasons. Like I'm seeing this trend across industry. Not sure if you have also caught up with this sort of thing. What's that sort of thing happening in terms of? I think I'm touching more on the meaninglessness people are complaining about.
Yeah. So I think obviously I'm ancient in terms of my what do I call corporate life. But people are the kids who are joining in now, and I'm calling them kids because obviously they're the Gen Z, Gen Alpha, calling them different terms. But the upside of the beauty of these first time job seekers in India right now is that they question, why am I supposed to do? When we started, it was, you're supposed to do it, okay, fine, I'll do it. You're supposed to turn up to office at 9, okay, fine, I'll turn up because that's what the employer asked for.
Yeah.
Okay. But I think today's generation is actually asking, what is in it for me? Why should I do it? What is the outcome and where am I adding value? So if you are able to show them those things, I have seen that the outcome is tremendous. The productivity is amazing. They know how to find information, get work done. They are quick, they are confident. So I think we have to enable them to do the best. Like all of us and every generation, I mean, a generation before mine obviously cribbed about my generation. I'm cribbing about this generation. The next generation will crib about the generation after, saying, we were never like this and we never worked in this fashion. But I think we also have to learn a lot from how they operate and ensure we give them an environment to be successful and productive. Having said that, something I keep counseling all the first time job seekers is that if an employer has put in a certain discipline and there are certain do's and don'ts, follow them. At least to start with, follow them. Don't, like a classic example, and you also asked, about hiring stories. This is a very, very recent story in a consulting firm. We hired young talent. They joined our customer, and within 3 days, the customer started complaining, saying they're not falling in line, they're not turning up on time. They come unshaven, unhygienic. They're just wearing very casual clothes, all of that. And when we started counseling them, the retort was, oh, but in the tech industry, people go in shorts and chappals. So why are you asking me to dress up formally? So I mean, that is something I wouldn't expect anyone. If you want a job and the employer has some sort of a framework,
Yeah.
At least adhere to part of it. Yes, you're okay to question as far as work and outcome is concerned, but I mean, every organization will have their boundaries. This lot has to actually learn to stay within some boundaries. I'm not saying all. Question them, but do it over a period of time. You don't have to just walk in day one and say, why aren't you giving me hybrid? Why can't I work from home all the time? Why do you want to see my face in office? Stuff like that. So yeah, so there are those challenges as well. So there will be, I think it's about expectation mismatch. So you said that people are unhappy. So as an employer, if I'm expecting my employee to fall in line with everything I'm saying, I think I'm wrong. But as a first time job seeker, if this lot is not trying to fall in line with what the employer wants, there is going to be discontent on both sides, and people will not stay for long. They'll not do what they're expected to do.
And I think one of the other reason is this entry jobs, especially the salaries have been.
Flattish.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
And why is that? Like, is there's someone put up a post on X on Twitter like 2002 or something. They were still earning 3 lakh something, or till now the entry level is, and inflation and everything has risen up like mad.
So yeah, actually that's bang on, right? And I think it's about a demand supply response. If you look at,
Too
uh,
much.
yeah, it's about, I mean, till about 3 years ago, 2 years ago, every STEM graduate wanted to join an IT services company. So the number of people who are waiting to join in at 2.5, 3 lakh salaries were so many. Why would anyone increase their entry level cost? So if you aren't taking the job, I am more than willing to jump over your head and take the job. Right? And it's not just computer science graduates. These were mechanical engineers, these were civil engineers, these are electronics engineers. Everyone wanted to sit down in front of a computer and do some sort of a coding.
Yeah. So there is no solution to it. That's what I can sense. You just need to cut the demand or set the talent across or spread them.